Hey there, welcome or welcome back to A Shelf Indulgent Reader. I am Barbara, and in this video, I'm going to go through my May reading wrap-up. Now, I didn't have the best reading month in the month of May. I had a book slump. I was sick for a couple weeks. We had a lot of stuff going on. We had a high school graduation. So it really kind of did affect my reading in terms of quality and quantity. But overall, I read 11 books in the month, which is about average. But I had over 4,400 pages, and my average rating was a 3.63, which is a little low for me, and I'll explain why in a minute. But first, I read this stack of books for a video that I am putting out later this week on judging books by its cover. So I'm not going to tell you the ratings of these books, but I will give you a little synopsis of them. The first one was How to Help a Hungry Werewolf, and in this book, we're following, what is her name? Cassandra, and she returns home to her childhood home because her grandmother had passed away and left her this house. And she runs into her high school or her childhood best friend. And he's kind of hanging around the house. She doesn't understand why. They had a falling out that you find out about later. And he's trying to get something from her grandmother because her grandmother had been helping him with something. Turns out he is a werewolf, but they had this falling out. She doesn't want to help him now because she's a little irritated with him. And but they do end up forming a little bit of an alliance, and she helps him out a little bit. And it's you'll have to watch my video to find out what I thought about it, but it was an interesting book. Let's put it that way. The second book I read was Bad About You. This is by Vari McFarlane. And in this book, we're following Harriet, who does not want to get married. And so her boyfriend of many, many years proposes to her, right? Because that's what you do when your girlfriend does not want to marry you. You ask them to marry you. She ends up breaking up with him, and now she has to find a place to live. So she moves into Cal's house, and she never met Cal. She found him online, or her friend referred him, and then she looked him up and applied to be his roommate. And they just kind of form this friendship, and you know, then it blossoms into a little bit more. So that was Mad About You by Vari McFarlane. And then I read Men Are Frogs, and I did not think I would like this book. I kind of liked it. It was actually pretty cute. But in this book, we're following Zuri, and she is a wedding planner in Chicago, and she has something happen at a wedding, and she's just kind of devastated about it. So she moves away to Ever After, Missouri, which is this very fairy tale themed town, and she becomes a wedding planner there because people have destination weddings at Ever After, Missouri, and she is staying at the Charming B&B, which is run by Prince Charming, and you guessed it, it's a very fairy tale-esque book, but it's written for adults, so I kind of had a good time with this one. This would be a great book if you love Disney and you're like one of those adults that loves Disney, like I'll go even if I don't have kids. You would probably really like this one. It's Men Are Frogs. And then I read The Art of Catching Feelings, and this is by Alicia Thompson. And in this book, Daphne has recently gotten divorced, so she goes to this baseball game with her friend. She gets really drunk because she had just gotten divorced, and she doesn't really know much about baseball. She doesn't know anything about like how to heckle or how to talk at a baseball game, so she's taking cues from other drunk guys around her. She heckles this baseball player. He ends up crying, and so she has to leave because now like people are furious with her for making this baseball player cry with her heckling. And so she reaches out to him on social media to apologize for heckling him, but she forgets to mention that she's the one who heckled him. So now he just thinks this random person is apologizing that it happened to him, not apologizing because they made that happen. And so she starts this like texting relationship with him. Then she goes to actually work for the baseball team as a sideline reporter. So now he knows who she is in person, and he kind of has feelings for her. They moved beyond, this heckling incident. So now he's kind of struggling with these two relationships he's having, one with the girl he's texting and the one that he sees in person, not knowing that they're the same person. So I like this one. You'll have to watch the video to find out what my true thoughts on it, but it was really good. I liked that one a lot. And then also remember, this was the theme of judging a book by its cover. So I picked up this book, Beautiful Things by Emily Rath, because it is a stunning book. It is really, really pretty, but it is a genre I would never read, or probably never read, but I did. And it is a Regency romance, but it's a Why Choose. And in this, we're following Rosalie, who she's unmarried. She does not have money. She doesn't have any family connections, but her mother was friends with the Dowager Duchess. So the Dowager Duchess invites her to come to their home, Alcott Hall, because they're going to have a house party for a few weeks so that the Duke can find a wife. She is not in the running to be a wife. She is just there to kind of help the Dowager Duchess plan all these events. So there's all these women there vying for the Duke's hand in marriage. But there's also 3 other guys there. One is his brother, James, and then one is James's friend, Burke, who's kind of like a ward of this house. And then the third is their friend, Tom Renly, who is a lieutenant in the Navy. And now they all are attracted to Rosalie, but she does not want to get married. She has no intentions of being caged in. That's why there's a cage on the cover. And so she has a relationship with all 3 of these men. And it ends on a cliffhanger. And so I instantly picked up the second book, which I'm reading right now. But is it as beautiful as the cover? You'll have to see that video to find out. But not a genre I would have picked up. I'm not a big Why Choose person, but it kind of made me a believer. I kind of get it. I get why they did. So that was that book. Then I'm not, the rest of these books are in order of how I rank them, not in order of how much I read them, but I did read The Shippers by Catherine Center. And in this, we're following JoJo, and she's getting married, and she is just not wanting to marry this guy. And before she goes down the aisle, in walks her childhood friend, Cooper, who she hasn't seen in a couple of years. He lives in London, and he kind of helps her get out of the wedding. And then he disappears. So she, leaves this fiance at the altar, and then Cooper takes off. A few months later, her sister's getting married on a cruise ship, and one of their other childhood friends is going to be there, who her sister believes is JoJo's the love of her life. So she says, let's come up with this plan to help you woo him over. Well, Cooper also shows up on this cruise ship, and she enlists Cooper's help to help her win over this guy. And then antics ensue. It's on a cruise ship. It was a really cute story. I laughed out loud quite a bit. But it was really about the relationship between Cooper and JoJo, as they've been childhood friends forever. But he's like one of those guys that's just always there for her. So check out The Shippers by Catherine Center. I think it just came out last week or a couple weeks ago. I then read the internet sensation right now, Yesteryear, which everybody is talking about this. And this book follows Natalie, who is a social media influencer. She's a trad wife influencer. And she's got millions of followers on Instagram and YouTube, about, living life on the farm with all of her kids and the cooking that she does and the baking and, being this perfect traditional wife. But you find out that she's really not, because she's got nannies and housekeepers and producers. And it's really, she's turned this concept of trad wife into a business. And then one day she wakes up and she has transported back to the 1800s, where she actually has to be a traditional wife. She has to be a trad wife, which she's never really done before. She doesn't really know how to cook or do any of those things. And this book is a wild ride. Everybody describes it like that. And it really is. I mean, it definitely had me hooked to the end. Natalie is a very unlikable person. But there's a lot of characters in this book that are unlikable too. She's not the only one. And I think I rated this like a 3.5 or a 4. I mean, it's one I'm going to think about for a long time. It's always hard when I rate books based on my enjoyment. But if you're like, I hate the character, like you don't want it to take away from how good the book was. It was such a fabulous concept. I mean, nobody's ever done anything like that out there. So maybe I'll bump it up to a 4. It was really good. I would definitely check out Yesteryear if you're looking for something different. And then I read Fever Dream. Now I'm a big Elsie Silver fan. I've read all of the books. So in this one, we're following Julia Silva, who is the sister of Theo Silva in Reckless, I think, from the Chestnut Springs series. And Julia is a TV producer, and she's on this show that's a dating show, kind of like The Bachelor, but they're trying to set up this cowboy and help him find a wife or a girlfriend or whatever, a match. And that is, actually, he's a bull rider, and that's Emmett Bush. And Emmett is actually a rival of Theo's in the Chestnut Springs series. So he's, it's filmed on his farm. They're trying to find a match for Emmett, and Julia and Emmett start having feelings for one another. So Emmett Bush is actually a rival of Theo Silva's and Rhett Eaton from the Chestnut Springs series, because he's a fellow bull rider, and he and Julia are spending a lot of time together. So Theo doesn't love that, but they also have to struggle with the fact that she's the producer for this show, trying to help him find a match, and how he has to navigate dating these women when he really has feelings for Julia. So like all Elsie Silver books, I love them. This was probably a 4.0, 4.25. I love this book. Not as much as I love some of the Chestnut Springs series books, but I definitely did like this one, and I would put that on your list for the summer. Then, because I really wanted to hurt my own heart, I picked up Daisy Hates by Jessa Hastings. And I know I mentioned in an earlier video about reading Magnolia Parks and how devastated I was about that book. And it just took me some time to pick up the next one. And I know that I'm going to get through the whole series because I do love it. I love Jessa Hastings' writing. Conditions of Will is one of my all-time favorite books. So I love her writing style. I mean, she writes a story like someone's telling you a story, not like you're reading it, like you're hearing it the way someone would tell you a story. And it just, those people who are really good at telling stories. That's how she writes. And you're like, oh, wait, I'm reading this. And in your head, you're thinking you're listening to a great story. And that's, how she writes, her writing style. And some people said that you would like Daisy Hates better than Magnolia Parks. Some people like Magnolia Parks better than Daisy Hates. I did like Daisy Hates better than Magnolia Parks. So in this series, we follow these socialites in London. They're very, very rich. They're young. They're beautiful. They do nothing all day but shop and party and drink and, sleep around and do things like that. And they're kind of like two separate groups of people that are kind of interconnected. So Magnolia has her group of friends, and then Daisy has her group of friends and family, but there's just some overlap between the two groups. So you're following some of the same characters, but there's a lot of new characters in this one too. Daisy's brother Julian kind of runs a mafia group, and he likes to steal art. And he has raised her because their parents were killed. And she's really brilliant. She's actually in med school right now. And but he has to keep her protected because they're mafia. So she's got bodyguards and things like this all around. They live in a compound. So she kind of has kind of a lonely life because she doesn't have a lot of friends. She can't go out. She can't just like go to the mall with her friends because there's people who want to kill her, But I did like Daisy Hates better than Magnolia Parks. I will pick up the next one now right away. I won't wait another 6 months and pick up the next book like I did last time. But I know I have to go back to the Magnolia Parks universe to read her story before I go back, because you kind of flip back and forth between Magnolia and Daisy. There is some overlap in the timelines. So you do get things in this book that you've already read about in Magnolia Parks because they happen around the same time. But love these books. I really do. This is like a 4.5 star for me, even though it does hurt your heart a bit because, these are really, really toxic people and toxic relationships. But I'm a big fan of the whole Magnolia Parks universe. Then I picked up my favorite fantasy book of last year. I did a reread of it, which is Shield of Sparrows. This was my #1 fantasy book last year. Probably after Onyx Storm, because I'm a big Fourth Wing fan, and I'm always looking for something that's going to give me those Fourth Wing vibes where you have this wonderful book boyfriend that, and all this yearning, but enough world building that it's interesting, but not so overwhelming that you're like, I have to keep, track of all of this. But Shield of Sparrows is one of those. And in Shield of Sparrows, we follow Odessa, who is a princess, and her sister is due to marry the prince of another land. And they have these alliances called the Shield of Sparrows, and where a prince will marry a princess from another land so that their two lands can form an alliance, their kingdoms. And the prince comes to visit. He has his bodyguard with him who's known as the Guardian. The Guardian is this big broody man who does kill people. I mean, he's a scary dude. And he does all the talking for the prince. The prince doesn't talk. And as they're getting ready to sign the Shield of Sparrows and marry off the princess, the Guardian says, no, we want her instead. So they want Odessa. They don't want the other princess. Well, the other princess has been raised her whole life to prepare for this role. Odessa is not prepared for this. But a deal's a deal, and the prince can have whatever he wants. So they now take Odessa, and they have to travel across this whole land to get to their kingdom. And, the prince doesn't talk to her. The Guardian's the only one who does the talking, and he's really broody, and they don't quite get along, and until they do. And there's a lot of twists and turns and plots, but I can't give it away. You just have to pick this up. I tell you, this is probably the best fantasy series I've read in a really, really long time. There's monsters in it. There's world building. There's wars between them. I mean, it's really an amazing book. So I had to do a reread of this because the sequel came out, which is Rights of the Starling. And this takes place right after Shield of Sparrows, and now they have to travel to more lands, and they've kind of all been split up. And in this book now you're getting another point of view. Another character has entered this. So the book is half told in Odessa's point of view and half in this other point of view from Caspia. And if you've read Throne of Glass, and you're going to know what I'm talking about, and you get to the chapters about Manon, and you're like, what is the point of this? I don't get it. How is this relevant to the story? You'll feel that way about Caspia, but I'm telling you, stick with it. Caspia's story was probably the best part of the book. It was so good. I sobbed. I think I have a video of me reading the ending, which I'll drop here. And I just sobbed. And this is what put me in the book slump that I was in for a couple weeks. I did pick up other books, but I just couldn't focus. I couldn't concentrate. I DNF'd a lot of things. I read things that were really easy because my brain just couldn't catch on to another fantasy for sure. That was not going to happen. So I had to read stuff, light and fluffy stuff, because this was just that good. So this is not as good as Shield of Sparrows. Maybe a 4.5, 4.75. I don't know, but this one is just so good. But then you have to read this one. And I know that there's a third one coming out. We'll see how many of those come out. But this is by Daphne Perry, Rights of the Starling. This was probably my favorite read of the month when you combine the two as well. So those were all the books I read this month. Ugh. Here's my whole pile, plus the shippers. And hopefully this month will be a little bit better in terms of quality and quantity. I think reading the books, judging books by its cover really is what affected my average rating, because I did have some low rated books in there, but I knew that going in. I knew that that was going to happen. And maybe I give away 5 stars easily, but I try not to read books that I know that I'm not going to like also. So my average rating is usually a little bit higher. But tell me if you've read any of these books, what you're reading right now, what your thoughts were if you did read any of these books, and what are some of your favorites. I also want to know, what is your favorite fantasy series? What is something that's going to give you those Fourth Wing vibes? You know what I'm talking about? That, like Shield of Sparrows does as well, because I'm always looking for a really good romantasy, because I love the romance, I love the fantasy, but put those two together and I'm a happy girl. So until next time, thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you'll like and subscribe the video so you can get more content like this, and I will see you next time. Happy reading. Bye-bye.